there's something else I want to talk to you about, and that is this seems like constant attack that we see now on the press. You know, everything's a fake news, and you can't believe what you read, and all this other stuff. Okay, so there is, as I try to tell people and some of my friends, if we're standing on the corner and we see a traffic accident out here, you know, if there's four of us there, we all see it differently. And that's the way it is with the news. We all have sort of different perspectives on things. And that's fine. You know, so what do you try to do to determine the truth? Well, you read multiple things, and then you use your judgment as to what you think is true or not true. But this idea that somehow there's nothing we can trust anymore, nothing, to me it's very concerning. And so I would really ask you, when you would consider maybe writing an editorial about the fact that you might not like everything you see, but the first thing that happens when people want to be bullies or they're autocrats or whatever it is that they go to restrict the press. So, you know, do all the complaining you want, but thank God we have the press. And it's to me, it's just one of those essential things that we have in our country that is so important for the fabric of who we are as Americans. And you know, and these attacks on institutions like we're seeing now with the FBI and the Justice Department, I mean, these are things that they're hallmarks of our country. And as we erode them or create enormous doubt in the minds of Americans that there's anything we can trust, I guess except for what they say about the Kardashians, you know, it gets us in trouble. And I would really hope that you could maybe get some people's attention about this and give them some food for thought. So, with that being said, jobs, you know, it's what I always talk about. I'm really pleased about where we are. I want to have a big celebration here, but I can't seem to get over the hump. We're up 485,000 jobs, and I want to have a big celebration when we get to 500,000. But we keep getting real close, and then we come back. It's like the tide, and I want to get us over 500,000. Is sort of one of the goals that I've had, and that's, you know, really a remarkable turnaround from 350,000. And look, and here's the thing: I don't have the poll in front of me because I don't really read polls. But if you look at what I'm told, my staff says these recent polls indicate people, as opposed to the national situation, they see Ohio in very positive terms, headed in the right direction, optimistic about the future. You know, and it's all about the fact that people are more hopeful now in our state than they have been in a long time. And it's illustrated by the fact that, you know, we're up these jobs. Forbes says since 2010, Ohio's shown the most improvement in the business climate. Ernst & Young ranks us #1 in most new or retained jobs. IBM Global ranked Ohio 5 in top destination states for foreign and domestic investment. Very, very important. Because, you know, we can get companies in other countries to come. It's part of the reason why, you know, I'll be over at the Munich Security Conference, because there's trade to be done. Just like we did last time, we'll have lots of meetings with people and try to combine things. This is why, you know, I got called down to Siemens to talk to their board, because I met the Siemens CEO and we talked about workforce and talked about jobs, and we have jobs here from Siemens. These things are really important. And I remember going to an insurance company over there. They couldn't even believe we showed up. They said nobody ever comes and visits us. And then they served me this skimpy little lunch, and then I kind of got it. No, it was fine. So, okay, now let's just talk for a second about Jobs Ohio. I don't know how many of you understand how this works. But what we've been able to do with this operation, okay, is to have people who can talk as experts to people who are making economic decisions. So if you're going to try to attract financial services company, you don't want to have a remedial education program with people who work in a bureaucracy to try to attract them. CEOs are like really smart people, and all of their people, they're really smart, and they want to know you get it. And what we've been able to do with Jobs Ohio is keep the politics totally out of it, and to be able to hire the kind of people that can go out and do their job. And the proof is in the pudding, you know, with these rankings. And over the past 5 years, we've attracted 275 companies to Ohio that didn't even have a presence here. 275. Amazon is remarkable. Now, everybody's going crazy about the headquarters. I don't get the headquarters. But what I do know is that we're going to have total over 10,000 employees in the state from Amazon. 3 or 4 years ago, we had 0. And we have what's called the cloud computing. And there's only, I think, 2 of them or 3 of them in the country. I think there's one out in Seattle. There's one here. I think there's maybe one. Am I right? Is there one down south, Wayne? But we're one of like 3 places in the country. And the cloud computing is really important. And now we have our schools training people in terms of how to participate in cloud computing. We've got Festo, Borgers, Daisy, and Worcester. Fuyao is a great story. In Dayton now, we've got a couple thousand employees down there, and employees must be pretty happy because they tried to unionize it and they didn't get it done. And these foreign companies are very sensitive to labor relations. So the Fuyao is doing well. If you go down there, you'll see a lot of kind of new technology, robotics. It's really, really interesting. And that is a replacement for what we lost when we lost the auto company out of that facility. So in terms of Jobs Ohio, it's been fully audited. There's probably going to be a performance audit done by I think there's it's all private sector. So that's what we'll be doing. You get a chance to look at everything. In terms of the way in which we offer incentives, look, we do it on the basis of payroll. We're not going to make up, because everybody goes out there and they're like trying to buy the deal. I tell all the CEOs, we're not buying the deal. You don't want to come here? That's up to you. But we're not going to go out and give you the moon, the stars, and the sky in order to get you to come here. If it doesn't make sense for our communities and for our state, in other words, we get to generate enough revenue and jobs, we're not going to do it. Now, I mean, you can tweak this a little bit. You got to use common sense, but fundamentally, we want to be in a position where what we offer makes good sense for us. And if you were to work with Foxconn, this is going on and on and on. Do I think we're going to get something with Foxconn? I do. Is it going to be, how big it's going to be? Don't know. But Foxconn will be here. They're a big operation. They make the iPhone. And they'll continue to make the iPhone, but there's lots of other things that they do beyond the iPhone. Wisconsin, there's just a mess up there in terms of how they have operated, and we just don't go and throw money at stuff, and we will not do it as long as I'm around. So, budget stability. We were going through tough times, but we're okay now. We made the decisions that had to be made. I think we protected the things that needed to be protected, and we're coming in pretty close to projections, but maybe just a little bit ahead, which makes me nervous because I don't want to spend that money. And companies don't want to go someplace where things are goofy and they're not sound. So because we're seeing growth, because our revenues are coming in, so we're going to do a capital bill. And so there'll be community projects, and that's you know what that's all about. We try to generate that from the bottom up, not from people here picking what they want. We want the local communities having the input in terms of what should happen. And one of the things that I'm going to stick in here, which nobody is aware of, I thought about this the other day in our meetings. Look, I guess I should talk a little bit about Pike County here. You don't know about any of this, but Cliff Rosenberger, to his credit, brought a number, what we have, Beth, 15, 20 young ladies, 13, 14, 15 years old. You should have all been in there. These kids live in homes with whoever is raising them drug addicted, in and out of jail. So these young ladies, and I give Cliff a lot of credit because he told these young ladies, he said to them after he met with them, the governor will really listen to you. And I was so happy that he felt that way, but I know him and I like him, and he gets it, and he wants to help these people. So they sat around the table and they talked to us about, all this mess that they have. I said, maybe you ought to go into foster care. Well, we can't go into foster care because we're raising our brothers and sisters. And these just, your teenage kids that we're talking about. And they vented, some of them cried, and at the end I was particularly taken by a young lady who sat just a couple of seats away from me, who hadn't said a thing. And then as she knew the meeting was going to wrap up, she started, silently and then visibly crying. My reaction was she knew she was going home, and she had to go home. And she was going home to a tough situation. So I told him that we were going to help him, promised them some money. Probably shouldn't have done that, but I had to say something to these kids. I just couldn't let them walk out. So we've got a team together, and a big team. I have been down there. Flew down. Nobody knew I was there, and nobody knows anything. This is the first time you're going to hear about this. Nobody knows about this. So we figured out, how do we get that whole community pulled together to deal with these kids and kids just like them. So they have down there a YMCA, which is, I went through the facility. It's great. I mean, they've got swimming, basketball, weights, and all the things that you would want to have. I was really taken by their facility. And we have a group that is giving trauma training to school officials, because when kids act up, sometimes we think, well, that's a bad kid. Well, if you're being raised by somebody who's in and out of jail, who's a heroin addict, you're not acting up and you're a bad kid. So we want adults to understand the consequences of what these kids are living through. And then we will have counseling for the kids. I want robust counseling. We don't really need psychiatrists. We just need kids to work their way through it. And they tell me down there that they have some of the resources. And again, thank God we expanded Medicaid. And then these kids went to the Y. Have they been to the Y yet? They went over. Okay, now we're telling the kids, you design a program, because what we want to do is get them after school over to a place, a safe space, where they can have like a normal life, right? Where they can do whatever they want to do. And the kids, these young ladies, are designing the program as best as I understand it. And so we have the schools, we have some of the government operations, we have the churches. And I told them all, you're all in here. Had some of the government people. If you're in here looking for money, you're not going to. That's not what you're here for, and we'll just kill the program. This has to be the community putting kids first, and it seems to be working. So I was in this meeting. I had just seen Dunkirk, which I'd known about, and then I don't know if you know this, but in World War I, the general commandeered all the taxi cabs in Paris to ship the troops to the front line in the Battle of the Marne. And so I'm sitting down there, and there's a minister there. He's a great guy. He's got a degree in engineering from Ohio State. And he moved down there, and he's running this church. I said, how many vans you got? See, because what I'm thinking is if we can get all the vans in Pike County, now think about this. So the kids, think about how hard this is. So you got the kids, they leave school, they go there, they're in this place. How do they get home? How do they get, well, we know how to get them there, but how do we get them home? How do we get the transportation going? So I was thinking, just like in Dunkirk, let's commandeer and let's call the community together to say who's going to be a driver. Then when they're driving, okay, what's the liability? What's the liability? All this stuff that pops up. So we also want to, where are we on this? If we can help these kids and we can screen this appropriately, because we can't give everything. Oh, and if they go to this facility and they don't have any shoes to play ball, we'll buy them some stuff. We'll just go and outfit them, okay? But what you can't do is just outfit everybody, because there's not enough money, right? And what I want is Pike County, I don't know if it'll work. I want it to be a model for rural poverty all across America. Because there's so many of these areas that are having this problem. And I guess we'll see how this thing goes. I asked for a report a couple days ago. I'm going to get briefed again probably today on where it is. I'll probably go back down again. I'm really increasingly happy and optimistic that the community will come together and do this. So in the capital bill, I've decided I want to reserve some money for these local operations. Now, we did the state of the state up, where were we? I mean, up at the lake, Sandusky. Anybody ever been to Sandusky? Okay, you live in Sandusky. Well, you know the Boys and Girls Club. So, okay, well, I don't know if you've ever been to the Boys and Girls Club. You're probably up there partying or something. But there is a Boys and Girls Club up there. And when you go through it, you can see it ain't in the greatest condition. I mean, they do the best they can. They have to rely on local contributions. So in the capital bill, I'm going to stick a chunk of money that can be used under criteria that will be very carefully defined, how these kind of these rural places where they have these community centers that are not just for kids but bring the whole community together, because I'm a community together, community up, that we can give them some money. So for example, if we were able to give a chunk of money to the Boys and Girls Club up in Sandusky, it'd be like manna from heaven, right? So we're going to, I think that'll go all the way through. So we're really, I'm excited about this. I'm excited. It's just what you have to deal with. And hopefully these kids, now these kids, like they're in trouble. They show up here. Nobody's going to listen to them. Now they're designing a program. So it's, we'll see how it works. It's a cool development. And so we'll have the local pork and all that stuff, so make everybody happy. And by the way, you just need to know that we've spent a chunk of money, by the way, on things like priorities for dams, which had been basically ignored. And I tell you, Buckeye Lake, you know about that. So for a while, I think Jim Zeringer couldn't go there because they had to drown him in the lake. Thank God that we did what we did. There had been no administration in anybody's memory that ever was willing to take the local heat about this. There was a guy that came in to see me who works for Zeringer. He's a dam expert, and he came in, he told me, when it rains at night, I worry sometimes that the dam will break. I met with him. I said, where's this dam going to break? Let's patch it up. They said the whole thing's at risk. And then they had that big storm, and I'm convinced, and so is the EMA director, if we hadn't got to work on that dam, probably would have burst, which would have been a catastrophic thing for that region. Work's being done on it. It's going to be greatly restored. It's happening quickly. People didn't like me at the time. That's life. That's what leaders, I think, good leaders do. And so we have to always keep our eyes on the dam projects and the dam projects. Okay, now, autonomous and connected vehicles. This is a big deal because this is about technology. This is about not only what we want to do here, but it's also about sending a signal that we don't have cows on our streets, that we really actually understand technology. So what have we done? Well, we have these smart highways. We've got stuff on the Turnpike. We got it on 33. We created a one-stop shop. See, if you want to have autonomous vehicles, which are coming fast, okay, if you want to have autonomous vehicles, you come into Ohio, where do you go? Well, right now they come to the governor's office. Well, that's not where they should go. So we've created this hub and spoke thing over in the Department of Transportation. So we got the PUCO, the Department of Insurance, Public Safety, all these things in this group. This hub, Department of Transportation, spoke, all these things that are connected to it, so that when somebody comes in and they want to get involved in autonomous vehicles, they go one place, we make it easy for them. This is coming at us fast. We have the fiber. We are now, we have to have sensors. This is all part of the whole program. And we have the Transportation Research Center. We've got the smart cities in Columbus. And we are going to create a smart city in Marysville, where we're going to have connected vehicles in Marysville, where people are going to, on a volunteer basis, drive. And cars will be able to talk to one another. Actually, if any of us are driving through a stoplight and the thing is going from yellow to red, and you could be in the light won't change. I mean, these are signals. The connected vehicles can talk to one another about road conditions, whatever. This is coming. This is fast, and we want a piece of it. And now people are going to want to mine the data in the middle of these freeways, of these highways. There's a lot of data there. So they came to me. I said, go research it. Because what we don't want to do is sell the rights to data collection we want to get our money's worth. And none of us understand all of this yet. So we're now, looking around and trying to figure out how we can really benefit. And so it's really, really good stuff. By the way, so the president offered this infrastructure thing. I got no idea how much money's in it. They say it's $1.5 trillion, and I think they don't have any money in it. Okay, so what's going to happen is all the states and local governments are going to whine. That's, by the way, a regular occupation for states and local governments. Whining is endemic. It's in the DNA. Just whine, 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 okay? So they're going to whine. We don't whine. Let me tell you what we've done. So we went out and, remember the turnpike? This was where people were married to their spouse and married to the highway at the same time. And when I said we were going to do something about the turnpike, everybody went crazy. Well, we went up there and we showed that the turnpike was falling apart, needed repairs, and that we could figure out a way to extract value from that turnpike. So we came up with a plan where we could bond against the value of that turnpike. So we dedicated tolls to paying off the bonds. This is how we did Jobs Ohio. We offered, I don't know if you know this, in Jobs Ohio, we created a not-for-profit. We went to Wall Street. We offered $1.6 billion worth of debt so we could build this organization. And the debt is paid off from the drinking. And we know in good times people drink, and in bad times they drink more. Well, we use the same kind of theory here with our highways. We pay off the bonds with the revenue from the tolls. That's what makes the bonds so secure and allows us to get a very good price on the bonds. So we did $1 billion. So we will have, at the end of my term, a 30% increase in the amount of projects we've ever had in the state without a tax increase. And, we invested, we got $14 billion on more than 7,000, it's crazy, 7,000 projects. So it's really good. But the good news is we're going for another $500 million. And yesterday, I saw the guy going up there. I don't know how it finally worked out. Are the bonds priced or anything, Wayne? Okay, so they're up making a presentation. We're going to get another $500 million. So get ready for more orange barrels and more highways improvement and more infrastructure on everything, including bridges. And this is great stuff. But you see, that's thinking creatively. Now, we got Brent Spence Bridge down there, and Kentucky can't figure out how, they don't want to toll it. What do they think? Sugar Daddy's coming? Some guy's going to come in on, or a woman's going to come in on a big white horse and build the bridge? I don't think so. So what local governments have to do is start being creative. Don't play politics, think differently. Because frankly, if we're waiting for the president or the Congress or whatever to fix all these problems we have, forget about it. Our problems get fixed when we decide to be active and do things from the bottom up. So I'm proud of what we've done on infrastructure. I'll be writing a piece about this. Anyway. Now, yesterday, I was coming back. I was in New York for a day and a half. I was on my way back and decided to get some pizza. And you realize you can't really order anything like that in an airport anymore. You have to go on a sort of an iPad to order your food. And by the way, when you do that, there's nobody working there, okay? There's no one there. I mean, there might be one person that's kind of, helping you because we're all us old folks. We don't know how to do this. Daryl doesn't have a clue how to do this, so she has to show you how to do this. And then there might be somebody that delivers the stuff. Do you understand what's happening with the digital transformation? Jobs are going to disappear. There was just an article about this bank. They don't have anybody in the bank. You go into the bank, if you have a question, they got somebody who's on a speakerphone, or probably a camera, but there's no tellers in the bank. You just saw about Amazon. You go in, you shop, you scan your device, right? They have a camera on you, and you walk out of the store, and then they bill you. If you go to Kroger now, you have a lot of people that are working there, men and women who are trying to supplement their income, or it's their job, or kids trying to make enough money to go to college. They ain't going to be working there. That's going away. You've been in Wendy's lately? You don't even make your order at the counter. See, all these changes are coming. So it's all, the most important issue facing America is workforce. And we have been on this for a couple years. There's so much that we're doing. I can't even put it into a capsule, but let me just explain to you how I want to get this done. And by the way, apparently Mark Cuban's coming here to talk about jobs of the future. You know, we had Eric Schmidt here from Alphabet, who was just up at Ohio State. Cuban's coming, and we're going to talk about AI and all this other stuff. I got to learn about it here in the next couple weeks, so I can sound half intelligent. Here's what I want. I want in the very early years, I don't even care if it's in kindergarten, to start saying to young kids, here's what a weatherman does. Here's what a policewoman does. Here's what a teacher does. I want kids to start getting familiar with occupations. And then as they get older, we want this to be more sophisticated. And maybe we can have these folks who are in these jobs, and some of this is happening, come in and talk to kids. And then, without forcing anything on the kids, we then have to begin to find their aptitudes and figure out what it is that really turns them on, besides sports. And nothing wrong with sports. When they retire, they're going to have a job. So we want to test their aptitudes. And that doesn't mean that's what you're going to do, because just because you think you're good in this, you can be really good in something else. And so all that fits in. But we want to start finding out where their motivations can be. Then with mentorships. Now, yeah, I started this mentoring program, which most of you don't know about. And what we want is business, faith, value-based, and the school to work together. Listen to this one. I just got these numbers the other day. We have 85,000 students who either have been or are being mentored by 14,000 people. Now, I know that's boring, because that's, but to me it's not boring. Mentoring changes lives. So you get people to go into school, they tell these kids what they can be, they show them their cars and their clothes, and they get kids excited about learning. I tell you something, Julie, 85,000 kids. And we know that mentoring may be the single biggest thing that can change a kid's life. I'm really thrilled about it. So then as kids get older, I want them in businesses. Now, you might remember there was two things I wanted to have in a budget. We got like 18 out of 20, but I wanted two things in the budget. One is I wanted non-voting business people to sit on the school boards. I couldn't get it. Why do I want non-voting people on the school board? You know why? Because when they put the curriculum together, I want it to reflect the demands and needs of businesses where they can get a job. Training kids in some abstract way or training them to work on the farm, I mean, that's over with. But it's really hard to change this. There's a couple institutions I've tried to change in my career. One is the Pentagon and the other one is the education system. And I've largely failed on both. I have my victories, but these institutions, they don't want to change. And they are self-protective all the time. And some schools are doing great. I mean, I want to say they're all, but some of them are, and we need to get all of them doing this. So we want kids to be able to get out of school and go to work and get credit for being out there in the workplace. Now, I was telling you, I wanted these business people on. I don't want all these accrediting agencies accrediting our universities. Why do I want somebody that lives in some ivory tower to figure out what we need to do in college? Why don't I get accrediting done by business people? And that's, by the way, you're starting to see a rise of a way in which kids can learn without having to go to college. It's all online and it's very specific. And this is the trend of the future, which will frankly have a dramatic negative impact on our universities if they don't wake up. I don't want some pointy-head bureaucrat saying what kids ought to learn. So if you go to college now and you take computer science and you get a job with Apple, you know what's the first thing they do when you get a job? They train you. Why didn't we get trained when we were in college paying all these ridiculous fees for being there? So we wanted those business people on the thing, we didn't get it in there. We wanted teachers to go out and spend 3 or 4 days. They thought I was going to try to get them to do a second job. That's not what I was interested in. I wanted teachers to get a sense of what's happening in the marketplace so that we can bend the education system. And we have been successful in some of this, and there are school districts that are doing this. They're getting kids out. They're trying to make the curriculum more relevant. Our community colleges are doing a pretty darn good job. Para Jones is doing a fantastic job running her school. They are working with the high schools. It's like Ohio Health here. They're working with, I think, the Dublin schools. They get the kids at Dublin to go to Ohio Health. These kids get excited about health care. They learn, they get motivated by what they're learning, and the next thing you know, they get a job. And we need to teach resilience. We need to teach the fact that you've got to be open to change. Because here's what I'm concerned is going to happen. You know what a tsunami is. I'm over in Phuket, and they tell me, oh, there's a tsunami coming. I say, okay, well, I'll pack up. I'll be gone tomorrow. I drowned. I can't get out of there. When the wave comes, I can't stop it. And when the wave of the digital revolution comes, if we are not having a system to think about the future, that's why I have a group thinking about what jobs are we going to lose, what jobs are we going to gain. If we don't have this, and we don't start training people that way, we're going to be caught in an economic tsunami. And you think we have divisions in America today, which we clearly do, the divide between rich and poor, successful and unsuccessful, employed and unemployed. That's what we're going to face here. And so Ryan Burgess is doing a heck of a job. It's impossible for him to work with me, but because I'm just so impatient about this. Higher education, institution, and employers together are providing shared equipment to be used in local and demand workforce training. We have kids who are currently, they're out working now, but they're also getting apprenticeships, 17,000 apprenticeships in more than 200 occupations. That's really important. So we just have to pull all of this together. I believe that frankly, maybe for the next group, maybe they need to have, I was going to say a department. You probably don't need a department, but you need a division by somebody, whether it's I'd have to think about it, never thought about this before. We can maybe create one, Beth, in the Department of Education, well, which we don't control, but maybe in higher ed, or maybe, I don't know where, so that every day all they think about is workforce. And Ryan Burgess does think about it every day, but we need the resources because this is massive, and we'd have to have lifelong learning. So, I'm working up in Youngstown, right? And I'm working in a mill, and then all of a sudden they tell me I have to become a coder. So I say, a what? This is what we have to deal with, the constant re-education. Drugs, okay? Prescription opioid-related deaths, I know this will never get a headline, are at a 6-year low. Let me repeat that. Prescription opioid-related deaths are at a 6-year low, and heroin deaths have leveled off. Now, that doesn't mean we still have a problem. But you know what our big problem is? Somebody going down to the corner and trying to buy some Coke, which is laced with fentanyl. I can't deal with people who are out here, and other than to tell them, don't be doing these darn drugs, okay? But when it comes to opioids, there's something I can do about that. That's why we put these very stringent rules and regulations in for acute pain. You can't get more than 7 days. Your kid can't more than 5 days. I think those are the numbers. And so we have seen also a remarkable drop. Let me see. We've reduced the number of opiates by 20%. Doctor shopping's down 80%. And these are about the toughest limits in the country. And we're going to have some rules for distributors, by the way. There should be no confusion, or there's got to be total clarity when it comes to where you sell. The problem you have is when distributors, when numbers of them sell, they don't coordinate. But we're going to have some rules. We're going to have the pharmacy board. We're working on them now. I think we announce them either tomorrow. Oh, we announce them tomorrow. Okay, so come on back.
You've brought up a lot of big ideas. Do you want to take any questions?
Yeah, I will. But can I finish? Because some of you wonder what I do. Was he governor of Ohio? What the hell you think I am? Okay, I can actually chew gum and walk at the same time. I'm going to take a few, and this is it. So, Medicaid expansion, thank God. The work on developmental disabilities, that's one of my happiest things, that we are trying to integrate these folks. This drug thing. Now, here's what I want to ask you. You all write about this all the time. Now, I assume that your papers cover high school basketball. Have you ever gone or heard of anybody that went to a high school basketball game where you got these teams, you got the gym that's rocking, everybody's having a great time? Before they tip off, does anybody ever get at center court and say, with all of you in here, I want to warn you about the dangers of drugs? Not a big deal. A couple minutes, maybe it's a student, maybe it's an emergency worker, a doctor, maybe it's, I don't know. Mothers and fathers, kids here tonight, don't destroy your life. You don't want to end up in jail, and you don't want to die. Stay off the drugs, okay? I've never heard of it happening. I've never heard it happening at a Ohio State football game. I've never heard it happening anywhere. Do you think that we're going to beat this drug thing because we got a bunch of politicians in Columbus? Yeah, we're spending, $1 billion on this stuff. We're restricting all these doctors. We'll take your license away or put you in jail if you are a crook and you're violating your license. Okay, all that stuff. But this has to come bottom up. And you have to encourage your community. You ever go to church, synagogue? Did you ever hear the minister talk about this? Did they ever say, hey, we're in here, doing our church thing? Did anybody ever talk about, well, God doesn't want you all doing drugs? Reach out to somebody. Have you ever heard that? So we're going to be serious about destroying this monster. It can't just be top down. It's got to be top down, bottom up. I'm begging you, just get one of your schools to make an announcement at the tip-off of the basketball game. Just one. And it'll catch fire. And so, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff to do. So, okay, Julie, now you pulled me off. I thought this is a lot to say. So, okay, who wants to
Yes,
ask
thank
a
you.
question?
Let's go over to the right here, Laura.
Yes, Governor, under what circumstances would you run for president in 2020, and what is your country calling? What does that mean? What does it look like?
Well, I felt that I needed to come back and run for governor, okay, and so I did. I wouldn't get too carried away. Look, every time I go on a television show, I have to figure out how to answer the question without saying I'm completely done. But I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm going up to New Hampshire. I was invited by universities. Okay, everybody's Twitter. So what about that? I said, well, I need my ratings too. So I'm going to go up. But look, I was at Johns Hopkins. It was a great event down there. I was up with Joe Biden in Delaware. It's just I go around. I have a voice. And I think that, in terms of running for president, I don't know what I'm doing next week. Frankly, I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, as I made very obvious here about the announcement. I don't know what I'm doing. Here's what I know, Laura. I don't know what I'm doing at the end of my term. I know this will sound to some of you a little bit wacky, maybe, but the Lord will decide what I'm going to do. I'll get a sense of what my responsibility is. There's no openings for that job. And I don't sit around really thinking about it, but I am around thinking about these issues. And I do want to be a voice in favor of immigration. I want to be a voice in favor of trade. I want to be a voice in terms of getting this country back together again and stopping all the fighting. I do want to reach out to millennials and Gen Xers, who I think are the future of our... That's what I want to do. What form that's going to take, I don't know. So...
on a different topic, if I could just real quick.
Only one question from you, Laura. Go ahead.
So Wright State University's had a lot of budget problems. An IG report found that most of the money paid to Ron Wine was questionable. They are still in a federal investigation. They had to return $2 million in federal student aid because they didn't have the right documentation. Is it time for more leadership changes at that university, particularly at the trustee level?
You mean getting the trustees to resign? I don't know. Let me talk about it and get back to you on it.
All right, thanks.
Okay?
Karen.
Governor, you had tweeted about redistricting earlier in the week, and we've got these redistricting talks going on right now. You said honest, bipartisan redistricting reform can happen, and I'm proud of our Ohio legislature working to make it happen. I'm just wondering, are you involved in any of these talks, and which plan do you support?
I started this thing by saying I was going to put redistricting reform in the budget, and I was asked by the legislators to keep it out and that they would work through it. Look, the easiest thing to do is to criticize any plan you have, and the hardest thing is actually have a plan. To me, the foundation of it is you have to have minority input. That's to me. And I talked to Matt Huffman last night. I think he's, I keep changing things. The only concern I have is, are there outside forces who want a failure here so they can go on the ballot and get voter turnout and everything else? What we need to do, and I've signed on to a couple briefs. I'm actually on that Supreme Court brief involving Wisconsin. I had a very pleasant conversation with the Speaker of the Wisconsin House about this. Too bad you weren't there to hear it. And I just signed on to this Maryland brief, and I hope they're going to get it done. I mean, you had them all here, and I think they sound semi-optimistic about it. It'd be great, because I think gerrymandering it's just horrible. And the reason why it's so bad, different, I think, than when I was there, is because of social media. So if you say, I want DACA's going to stay, and everybody goes crazy, they beat the living daylights out of you and say you're going to get a primary. If these districts are not more competitive, then you go either hard right or hard left, and we all lose in the end. So hopefully they will work something out here, and the outside forces, I won't win, because I think some of them want to block any success here.
So do you support the legislature's plan? Do you support the citizens group's plan?
No, I think the legislature should work this out. I don't know, as a citizen, I don't, look, I got my folks looking at all of it. I follow it, but and if they want me to be involved, I told Matt, if you want me to do something, convene people, like I'm doing on guns and like I've done on community and police, I'd be glad to get groups to sit down and talk. But I think they're fine. That's where I am with the legislative plan. That's who should do it.
Have you had a meeting on guns? Have you had a session where you've brought people together on that?
Yes, we have, and it's just a small group. It's sort of informal, like a lot of our meetings, and we have people who are, very, very strong on pro-guns, and those who say, look, we're for the. They made it clear you have to be for Second Amendment. If you just want to take people's guns away, forget it. And we had a very good meeting. There'll be probably more meetings. We don't know what's going to come out of all this. They're kind of informal. There are people who I think are constructive on both sides, and I think they did a lot better. I was there. I think the meeting lasted like 2.5 hours. I was there for about an hour, and I think maybe a little longer, and I think they did a lot better once I left the room.
Go ahead.
Hi, sir. My name's Casey Junkins. I'm with the Intelligencer in Wheeling, West Virginia. About 2.5 years ago, you were here, and I came up for an announcement about with some folks from Thailand about PTT Global Chemical
this whole
ethane cracker for Belmont County. And at that time, they agreed to spend $100 million for engineering and design.
Where is it all, right?
Yes.
You just have to wait. I don't mean you. We all, I don't know. These are complicated. The Thais have to have a partner. We're on it all the time. We talk to them. It's like with Foxconn. Terry Guo and the chairman, he's been here. I've been to Japan to see him. It's just patience. And we would love to have the cracker, because what the cracker will do is to create a plastics industry in Ohio and will benefit. Look, the way I look at it, we need West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio as best we can, plugging away, working together, and it'll benefit the whole region if we can get this thing done. So if you want, I will have Jobs Ohio give you detail by detail the latest. I've been on the phone to these folks day and night, but enough already. You got to decide, and what I tell them is decide. And what I tell them is not being in the United States is crazy. Just so I told Terry Guo. So we'll see. These things they don't happen overnight. And this one has been like not overnight. This is like, just like you said. Yes. Yeah. How's things in Wheeling?
Still plugging away.
Tell that family down there to spend some money on the Pirates, would you?
This morning we talked with the legislative leaders about some of the things that have been happening lately with some sexual harassment, off-color joke issues there. Do you have a position one way or another on whether apologies were enough in the case of some statements said at a going-away party?
I really don't know about it, but one of the things I try to do, like I got to manage my own stuff, okay? And we have a zero policy. Our Department of Administrative Services they're carrying out this training all over the government. I'm just not comfortable. I don't know the details. I don't know what happened, and it's sort of a legislative matter. And what was somebody drunk? Were they? I mean, who knows? But we all live in a world. We have to have respect for one another, and that's the way it works in our office. And we try to have it working in our government. And if we see that it isn't, we take action. So I just don't know enough about it.
Okay.
Governor, are you concerned about the Trump organization's comments in terms of America First and trade and
Well, yeah,
some
of course I'm very concerned about it. I
And-
mean, look, trade's a big deal. People don't realize this. 40 million Americans are engaged in trade-related activity. 1 out of every 5 jobs of people work in trade. And the trade-related areas have provided better job growth, better wages, and there's a geopolitical side. So this is why I went to Washington with President Obama. If all of a sudden we don't want to be part of the Pacific Trade Agreement, who do you think is going to win? Us? We're not going to win. China's going to win. And China's on the march all over the world. And thank you. And so, I think trade is a very important part of our country. I pointed out, I think yesterday on television, that before we had a president, the Continental Congress sent Franklin, Adams, and Jefferson overseas to try to get trade agreements and diplomacy. Diplomacy and trade, they're connected. And yeah, retreating from the world is it's dead wrong, and I don't agree with it. And that's why I speak out.
And how do you see his policies or what he is talking about affecting job growth coming to Ohio, especially from what you've been talking about in terms of the companies you were discussing just moments ago?
If all you want to do is sell your products in Ohio or in America, great. But we're not a big chunk of the whole world population. There's so many consumers out there. We want to be able to sell our things all over the world with reduced tariffs. Now, if people are cheating, we need to call them on it. I've always said that. Need to have a quick process to be able to figure out if they are cheating. But by and large, you just don't want to get in the business of shutting off these markets. I mean, just talk to farmers about their ability to export. I mean, they all want it, and I agree with them.
Do you feel that they're endangering our opportunities to bring these companies here? His rhetoric?
Well, it's not just companies here. It's our ability. I mean, some companies will come here, and many of them are. You look at, Kia, for example, or Subaru. I just had a meeting with Subaru when I was in Detroit, talking to them about coming here. It not only affects their willingness to come here, but it affects our ability to have healthy. Look, most of the exporting businesses in America are small and medium companies. Yeah, I just think this anti-trade stuff is just off the wall.
Governor Kasich, I thought it was interesting that you sort of reflected on your efforts to reform the Pentagon and the education system as things kind of looking back at your career. I remember the last time I work up in Cleveland. The last one of these I came to was maybe 5 years ago, and you said at that time that you were going to hike the severance and the natural gas tax before you left. Do you plan on still trying to do that? And if not, are there anything that you look back on your governorship and feel like it's like unfinished business?
I would say that, well, in terms of the severance tax, that's all politics. You know that, and sometimes you just can't. If I had enough money, I'd put it on the ballot and it would pass, 90-10. But I don't have the resources to put it on the ballot. Do I think at some point it'll go up? I don't know. You got to figure out, follow the money. And this whole business of we have this ridiculous thing. Okay, let me tell you one other thing but we've made progress, but a little disturbing. So they pass a tax bill in Washington. Do they pay for it? No. We passed tax bills here. We paid for it. That's why our budget is working. We made sure we had, instead of spending money, we gave a tax cut back. But you might recall my tax reform ideas, which included, taxing digital goods and all these. Some of it we got done. Tax reform is so difficult. And there's one other thing. We hear from legislators all the time that nobody cares if we cut the income tax. Nobody cares about the income tax. Oh, really? You know who John Gruden is? John Gruden's getting paid $100 million to coach football. That's what I'm really thinking about, Laura, of doing next. I'll do it for $50 million. Do you know that they're moving the team from California to Nevada, and they have backloaded his pay so he doesn't have to pay the income taxes in California? Somehow in our state, we don't think these things matter. I don't even get it. And there was even talk about raising taxes on small business, which we did not do, fortunately. And I give a lot of credit to the leaders for this. But this idea of tax reform is really important. You tax consumption, and you cut taxes for risk-taking and investment. I wish we had done better on that, but we brought the income tax down. One area that is always concerning to me, rural poverty. It's just really hard. How do you get businesses to locate in Appalachia? And we're working on it, and using the digital economy and the ability to communicate over long distances. And right now, you can have access to high-speed internet in southern Ohio. All you got to do is go and ask. T-Mobile has the way to do it. Go to a T-Mobile place and ask them, and they'll give you high-speed internet. These things are really important. It's a vexing problem. Look, I mean, I'll tell you another one that's really frustrated me. I wanted our school funding to get more money to the poorer communities than the wealthier communities. We made progress. Did we get everything we wanted? No. These things all take time. When I look back on what I've accomplished, I'm thrilled. I mean, look, the state, people feel good about the state. We're up jobs. We've left nobody behind. We've helped minorities. We've helped the developmentally disabled. I think it's been an unbelievable time, and I think that maybe, I hope, at some point people will look back and say, how did all that happen? And I give credit to the leadership, particularly of Bill Batchelder and Tom Niehaus. Maybe that crisis of $8 billion in the hole gave us the opportunity and the window to push a lot of things through. The creation of Jobs Ohio, the highway, all this stuff. It's really been amazing. But you don't always get everything. You can't always get what you want. You get what you need.
Thank you.
That's a great line, isn't it? Is that it?
Other questions, folks? Oh.
Thanks for your time, Governor.
Can't think of a place I'd rather be than with you.
I know. Thank you. We've had to put the old team together again. With the failure of ACOT, you obviously communicated with the Department of Education to do what they could to take care of those roughly 12,000 kids that are left in the lurch at mid-year. Does this speak to you of a need to do some additional reforms in terms of charter schools, big picture, online schools, small picture, to prevent this from happening again?
Well, we put the toughest rules on charter schools that the state had ever seen. And we can go back and look and see if there's more we can do. But what I really want is I want to be able to run a Department of Education. I don't think we should have this elected school board. Look, when you go in and vote for judges, you have no idea who you're voting for. Let's be honest with ourselves here. We just don't know. We see these names, we go, what name sounds best? Now, maybe some of you study these things, but I don't always study them. Well, then we vote for the state school board. We have no clue who those people are, and they're running education policy, and I'm the governor, and I can't tell them what to do. It's nuts. And so what I want to do, and I've talked to the legislature, and I'm hopeful we're going to see some legislation that will combine the Department of Education in Ohio, leaving the ability to award degrees and all that and certifications to teachers where it is, and move the policy side into our higher education so that a governor can run education. When a governor is elected, a governor ought to run it. There ought not to be some break. I don't even know how it happened. Now, all the governors wanted to get it done. None of them have succeeded. We'll see. But I know that over in the House, Cliff wants to move something, and I hope it'll move all the way through. We'll see.
What is your position on, since the school closed, obviously the state is no longer getting its money back that it says it's owed. I know you're not the Attorney General to go after that, but just from a policy standpoint.
I don't want to, I'd have to, look, sometimes you ask me a question and I don't have an answer. I have to sit down and think about it. I mean, you just have to think about it. What else can we do? I don't know. I don't know. I want those kids to get settled. And I'll tell you a funny story, though. You know, I was out at a dinner with one of my daughters, because the other daughter was with my wife, figuring out which school she's going to go to. And so somebody comes up to me and starts talking to me about ECOT. Next thing I know, it's in some blog. It's like you can't go anywhere and carry on a conversation without being thinking that you're going to be part of a report somewhere. So I think I'm going to walk around with a sign that just says, "Text me." Okay. I don't know, Darryl. We'll have to find out. But at the end of the day, I don't want to show any favors to anybody. I mean, if they've screwed up and there's money to come back, it's like Laura's question. I want to know. We've been concerned, by the way, about Wright State for a long time, and they've made changes. Do you need to make more changes? Not sure. And in regard with what you're saying, I don't know.
Was there, begging your indulgence, was there something that happened between you and Bill Logger? He was initially a political supporter of you.
You know, look, I have a lot of political supporters. You know, I'm not going to get into the whole list of those that thought, you know, that that I'm going to be a certain way, and that's how I'm going to be. I mean, I've been pretty clear to all of you. There's nobody that's frankly been more independent. And you know, I learned a lesson back when I was a state senator. So when I came, it's all, you know, kind of, whether it's a miracle or a disaster, it depends how I want to look at it. I walked into the State House when I graduated from Ohio State, thinking this was the last place I could ever get a job. And this guy by the name of Salty Lewis, for some that you know, if you would remember him. God, I am a lot older than you guys, but really youngish. So he said, "I'll give you a job writing resolutions." And I showed up the next day, and he goes, "You know, this guy that worked for Kasich, got fired. They have an opening up there. Go up and see him." So I went up there, and I told him from my internships in Washington that I basically ran the town, and they hired me as an aide to the state senate. And one of the people that interviewed me was a woman, and there was a vote on the Senate floor after I became a senator, and she called me up and she said, "You know, I want you to." It's one of these moments. I need you to vote for this. You know, I've helped you, and you know, blah blah blah. I said, "Listen. If it was just me, I would, of course, give you my vote, but it isn't me because I represent 300,000 people, so that's what I have to do, and I'm sorry." So people can give me stuff, but they ain't getting anything for it. That's probably why I don't raise enough money, and I'm not president today.